de los latinos en América. Estamos transmitiendo desde hermosa 1470M, 96.9 FM. Les habla Lilia Galindo y tengo a Thomas Elias. Él es un columnista que escribe en muchísimos periódicos en el estado de California y 2 veces a la semana aquí en el Antelope Valley Press. Good morning, Tom. How are you?
Good morning. I'm pretty good. And I thought we could talk about some positive things about California that have turned up in the wake of the near hurricane that we all experienced over the weekend, and also in the wake of the Maui fires. Let's talk about the Maui thing first. You will see a story at the top of the Los Angeles Times today that says that a fire crew on Maui put out a fire on the edge of the town of Lahaina very early on, and they thought it was completely contained, and they thought it was out, and they left. Wow. And they went somewhere else to fight a different fire that was going on at the same time. But that fire that they left wasn't really out. It started up again, it burned, and it burned the whole town of Lahaina in the end. Now, what does that have to do with California? Well, we've had a lot of wildfires in California, and we've had a lot of incompetent and negligent utility companies causing many of those fires. But we have never had a fire crew that left a fire and then let it burn a whole town after they left. And that tells you that our firefighters here are pretty darn good, because an accident like that can happen very, very easily. I'll stop there.
Ok, dice que vamos a hablar de cosas agradables. Dice, por primera vez, después de tantas cosas, acabamos de pasar casi huracán aquí localmente y supimos también del incendio en Maui. Y dice, fíjense, viene una columna en el Los Angeles Times el día de hoy donde dice que hubo un grupo de bomberos que trató de apagar o pensó que había apagado el fuego ahí en Maui y dice, creyeron que habían controlado ya el fuego, se fueron a apagar otros y resulta que nuevamente se reactivó y quemó todo el pueblo y bueno, no solamente eso, produjo un montón de víctimas. Y dice, pero aquí en California pues tenemos muchas compañías que nos proveen servicios de gas y electricidad que tienen muchos problemas, pero tenemos un excelente, y que han causado algunos incendios, pero tenemos un excelente equipo de bomberos tan profesional que nunca nos ha pasado ese tipo de cosas. Okay, now you can continue, please.
Okay, so what else do we have good this week? Well, first, let's just say that what happened in Maui reinforces the competence of our fire crews here in California. We're very fortunate to have people that are that good doing the work against the fires we get in California. And it's kind of the same with the response we had to the floods from Tropical Storm Hillary, which started off as a hurricane, but by the time it reached us, it was only a tropical storm. Now, in my backyard, that storm dropped over 5 inches of rain, wow, more than we get in an entire year normally, in the space of 15 hours. So that's a lot of water that was falling all over Southern California. And yet, we had very few disasters. Yes, in Palm Springs, right where the eye of the storm passed over, we had some flooding and we had some people that had to take to their roofs, and we had some homes that were invaded by mud all the way up to the roof of the first floor of those homes in some cases. But that's not new. In my career, I've covered many mudslides out in that area, out in the Coachella Valley. And the mud really can slide. If you look at the mountains around there, there's a reason, for instance, why the mountains just south of the Coachella Valley are called the Chocolate Mountains. It's because they're just dirt. They're plain dirt. They're brown. They look like chocolate. And so when you get heavy rain suddenly, and a lot of it, the mud starts to flow in that area. And short of planting trees all over those mountains and then having to water them regularly to keep them alive, we're going to have mudslides out there every time you get a big storm like this, which seems to happen about once every 20 or 30 years. But most places had just outstanding responses to the flooding. We have got new systems in place all over Southern California to capture stormwater and put it into underground aquifers so that we can use it in the future. And so we have these storm drains that lead to that. And if you looked around during the storm, you would have seen at the entrance to the storm drains where the stream was flowing down toward a storm drain and then it would flow into the drain, there were people standing there because there was debris in those streams that were flowing there. There was tree branches and there was lots of dirt and stone and so on. So people were standing in the rain near those entrances to the storm drains, and they had pitchforks in their hand, and they were clearing the debris out of the way so that the water could flow into the storm drain and not create a flood in that local area. I'll stop there, but that is really outstanding planning when you have that.
Bueno, dice que tenemos que estar muy orgullosos aquí en California de todo lo que se ha hecho, dice. No solamente del excelente trabajo que hacen los bomberos también, pero también de todo lo que se está haciendo para planear un mejor futuro para California. Dice, acabamos de pasar el huracán que se convirtió finalmente en tormenta Hillary. Dice, y aquí en mi casa incluso tuve una precipitación de aproximadamente 5 pulgadas de lluvia en un periodo de 15 horas. Dice, lo que hace, bueno, pues que eso equivale a lo que tenemos durante todo el año de lluvia. Pero aquí en California se han visto muchos menos desastres. Por ejemplo, en las inundaciones en Palm Springs, que han sido siempre cada 20 o 30 años, que están cerca de las montañas de Coachella, que por eso le llaman las montañas de chocolate, dice, porque cada que llueve se hace un lodo increíble, es pura tierra que se hace lodo y que puede crear problemas, dice. Entonces, lo que se ha hecho es sembrar árboles para que se detenga ese lodo. Y además tenemos un nuevo sistema de drenaje que se trata de capturar todo el agua que viene de las lluvias para usarla y luego almacenarla en un lugar para usarla cuando hay escasez de agua. Dice, y en esta ocasión que estaba la lluvia tan fuerte, pues ahí donde entra el agua para ser almacenada, obviamente se habían acumulado muchísimas cosas que siempre se caen con las tormentas, ¿verdad? Como ramas de árboles, basura, etcétera. Pues ahí había hombres parados para estar limpiando el drenaje y que el agua pudiera correr sin ningún problema. Por eso tuvimos muchos menos inundaciones que todos los demás. Okay,
so let me take one town as an example to show you what good planning was here. And I'll use the town of Ridgecrest, which isn't too far from where you are out there in the Antelope Valley. Mm-hmm. But Ridgecrest, as you know, sits all by itself out in the middle of the desert. And it's an interesting town because it's right next to a naval weapons base. So there's a lot of the most modern weapons are tested and made at right next to Ridgecrest at the China Lake Naval Weapons Center. But the flood response in Ridgecrest and the eye of the storm passed directly over Ridgecrest as it happened. It was outstanding. There was one block in downtown Ridgecrest where a lot of stores got flooded. But even on that block, many stores were not flooded. But the drainage system in Ridgecrest was set up so that the water was directed to a hollow in a park right in front of City Hall. And so the Monday morning, when Monday morning came and the sun came out finally, there was a lake in front of City Hall in Ridgecrest, a big lake. And this is the way it was planned. That's where the floodwater was supposed to go. And it went there instead of going into houses and ruining houses. And so what you had on Monday was the kids from the town of Ridgecrest, they had the day off from school, and they were out there in kayaks and rafts, and having all kinds of fun in that new lake that they had in their town. Now, a week from now, that lake will be gone because the water will be absorbed into the underground aquifers up there, just as planned. But that's an example of a town that avoided major damage, even though it had more rain and more wind than just about any place else. It avoided major damage because it had excellent planning. And that's California. We hear all this negative stuff about California all the time, but there is so much good here. And what I'm talking about in the response to fires, response to floods, those are things that we do very well here, better than anybody else. And we do some other things very well, too. For instance, no state has recovered faster from COVID-19 than California, and it's blows to employment. California unemployment has dropped in each of the last 21 months. And, that tells you that we're doing something right out here, in spite of what people like Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, and Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, say. I'm telling you, we need to be very happy that we live in California. It's a great place.
Okay.
And there's things that are wrong with it. And I make my living telling you what's wrong with it. And we'll get back to that probably next week.
Okay, we have only 1 minute, but let me translate.
Okay.
Bueno, dice que debemos de estar orgullosos de vivir en California porque tienen un excelente sistema de planeación. Dice, por ejemplo, Rich Crest, que es una comunidad que está muy cerca de aquí, tiene cerca un centro de armas espaciales y dice, es muy moderno, y ahí con China Lake, que está también cerca. Bueno, pues ellos controlaron el daño mayor de la inundación, dice, porque les tocó el ojo del huracán, y dice, tiene un sistema de planeación para que el agua, en lugar de que se meta a las casas, vaya y se acumule enfrente de las oficinas de la ciudad. Dice, lo que hizo que se formara un gran lago, que los jóvenes o los niños, como no fueron a la escuela el día siguiente, tuvieron que ir lo pudieron usar como lago, como para divertirse ahí. Dice, ese es lo que se llama buena planeación y de que todo salga bien. Dice, no se inundaron las casas porque se hizo esa planeación para que el agua se fuera a donde no afectara a la mayoría de las gentes. En California también tuvimos el mejor control del COVID. Dice, ningún estado tuvo un control tan rápido como el de California. No, el desempleo ha caído en los últimos 21 meses y tuvimos mucho más éxitos que ningún otro. Es muy bueno vivir en California. Dice, yo para vivir critico las cosas que pasan en California, pero me doy cuenta que somos privilegiados por vivir en este estado. Thank you so much, Tom. Thank you so much. Hasta la vista.
Thank you, Lilia. Hasta la vista.
Bye-bye.